I'm super excited to introduce our guest today, Nikki Lilly. Nikki's story is one of both public milestones and the private reality of living with life-threatening chronic illness, having been diagnosed with AVM at just 6 years old. Nikki has used creativity to build a world beyond her reality, empowering everyone, as well as those who, like her, grew up without representation. Through personal stories, mind-body techniques, and practical solutions, I'm Fine aims to help listeners move beyond pain and find possibility within it. I'm Jean Campbell, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming.
I know, and you've just been someone who I've been so excited to speak to. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you.
And obviously you've done incredible things in your time so far. Your inspirational channel on YouTube, which you started at 8. You've got an international Emmy Award. You've got a book.
Yeah.
CBBC
I forget what I've done.
Presenter.
Yeah.
Like the list goes on.
Yeah.
But it's just such a privilege to have you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I saw that you were in a fashion show recently.
I was, yeah.
How was that?
Oh my goodness. I should have honestly messaged you for advice before I did it. I felt like such a fish out of water, so out of my depth. But it was just, I wouldn't even say it was a dream come true because it wasn't even something that I dreamt of doing. Like I was so in awe of, models and the industry because it's all about creativity and it's, boundless in that there's not really any rules with fashion in terms of what you wear. And I think that's something that I've always been so attracted to and drawn to. It kind of feels like armor, what you wear. And so it was so special. It all kind of came from, I walked through a brand called Factual and I wore them to Cannes Film Festival earlier in the year. And it just was like a massive moment. They were saying that they held the dress till they had the right person to wear it, and they had so many requests for it and just kept waiting. They were like, it just doesn't align, it doesn't work for us, because all they believe in is pushing the boundaries of fashion, changing the typical stereotypes and kind of conformities that have been put into the industry and restraints, and challenging all of that, turning it all on its head. And it kind of took everything by storm. It got so much coverage, me just being there, and it was amazing. And then it got to like a couple of months later and I got a message basically saying, we want Nikki to walk in our show and close our show. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm not cut out for this at all. I've never done this. I've got 2 left feet. Like I can't walk in a straight line on the best of days. Like I'm so out of my depth. But equally, I was like, I can't say no. One, because I was like, it's such a big opportunity and I want to support them. And I was so grateful that they even thought of me and wanted to support me. But equally because, fashion is an industry that is unfortunately very one type of mindset, one type of person that you see on the runway, one type of body type, appearance, etc., etc. And that can be really damaging. And though I have always loved fashion, I've never really felt fully embraced by the industry or the people in it. And so I just knew that it was kind of going to be like making history, being one of the first people to walk in Paris Fashion Week, especially Paris, where it's like the mecca of fashion.
Yeah.
And, have a visible difference. And so I said yes. But then the closer and closer it got to it, I was like, what have I done? Why have I said yes to this? I was so nervous that I literally went to a runway coach. I was like, I can't do this. I was so scared. And I was like, I did my walk for her and she was like, okay, we've got a lot of work to do. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to
really
do
what
this.
you want her to say.
No, exactly. But what I learned is like, as soon as I got the dress on, my demeanor kind of changed in itself
became
anyway.
The character.
Yeah, and I think that is what so much of fashion is it's playing dress up and kind of envisaging and taking on these roles that you feel would wear these dresses or these heels or whatever it may be. And Hannah and Stephen, who are the founders and designers of the brand, made me feel so comfortable and at ease, like as much as I could. But it was incredible. The coverage it got when I did it was insane. Like Vogue Runway was like, her walk was the best part of the show. And it felt so redefining and such a big moment. That was so much bigger than me. I think a lot of my activism has been using my voice And what I've learned is sometimes just showing up and doing the thing that is
Being
scary
you.
and different and just being me and being there. I've learned sometimes there's 1,000 more words than me just screaming and shouting into like a void that kind of feels like people take it on but then forget about it, you know? So that was big, yeah.
Before we started
Yeah.
the episode, we were talking about that thing of, you know, so often you see someone
Yeah,
at, you know, what you may see as like the finished product
Literally.
or like the top of the mountain, and you don't see like everything that's led up to that
Yeah.
moment, or you don't see the 23 other hours
No.
of their day,
Yeah.
but you see that moment where you're on the red carpet or you're
Literally.
on the runway,
Yeah.
and that feels like a million miles away maybe for someone else.
Definitely.
And so this conversation is going to be a lot about like redefining strength, the importance of the dialogue, and like and the way that you've used your creativity and your experiences to inspire yourself and millions
Yeah.
of people at the same time, including me.
I'll stop.
I'd love to start by talking a little bit about how your experience with AVM and growing up with it has shaped you
Yeah.
as the person that you are now.
Yeah, so I was born with my condition, but it didn't kind of become active till I was 6 years old. So lived a very normal, very happy childhood, and yeah, very normal life. Life as I knew it was, as it is when you're a child. World is your oyster. You can be a princess. You can be a whatever you want to be. You know, it's like the supposedly the best time of life because you don't care what other people think. It's kind of before you are.
You're unfiltered.
Yeah, literally, you're unfiltered. You're, you know, not jaded by life, things like that. And so till 6 years old, I was the most active, chatty, outgoing child. Like I was on a boys' football team with one other girl.
No way.
Yep. I played ballet. I was in Glee Club. Like, no, literally cooking. I did every single kind of.
I forgot to mention you're also winner of
Junior Bake Off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another little notch on my belt, something I did. I forget, honestly. And I did that at 12. But yeah, I was like such an outgoing, chatty child. And I could have any toy to play with, but my mind in my kind of world I created in my head, and role play was, my element. So I'd always pretend I was on TV and be like, hey guys, so for today's video, we're going to do, don't know why, I always envisaged someone having an American accent anytime I would pretend.
Why is that such a trait of being a kid?
I was like, I felt like I was on QVC, like, so for today's video. But yeah, that's how I kind of was as a child. And then when I was 6 years old, veins started appearing on the right side of my face and some swelling and pain. And that is when my world flipped upside down in an instant. I saw my GP. My GP was like, I don't really know what's going on, referred me to another doctor. Lots of scans later, lots of appointments later, referred to the best children's hospital in the UK. And they told us, my parents and I, that I had an AVM, an arteriovenous malformation. At the time, it wasn't even in the NHS directory. It was so rare and so unknown about and unresearched that it was really, really scary, all the information that was out there. It was like how it was fatal, how, there was barely anything that could be done to manage an AVM, and that no one really specialised in it or knew what it was. It was kind of this grey matter where no one wanted to touch you because it was scary. And so my life kind of became hospital or being at home. We'd call hospital my second home because if I wasn't at home, I was in hospital. I was kind of pulled from school, or if I was there, it was like once every 6 months. So I had no childhood. I went from 6 to basically 60 years old in an instant, while other kids were, worrying about homework. I was signing consent forms with my parents for operations that were like, may be fatal, may lead to death, may, risk of severe bleeding, things like that. And so it was just night and day. And I don't really think I fully understood what was going on because I was so young.
You're a baby.
I was a baby. You don't even have a concept really of what chronic illness is. And so I really thought that it was like a cold that was going to go away. I think there was a real kind of like running away from the idea that this was going to be my life. I spent a lot of time rejecting that was actually happening. It kind of felt like I was this other person watching it all play out. But it was like, no, this is your life. This is your appearance changing before your eyes. This is, people saying that your life will never be the same. There's no cure. It will just be kind of trying to fight, walk up a hill and try and fight this condition, that's bigger than you. And so, yeah, I think I changed so much as a child. I became a recluse. I never left the house. I never socialized with people my own age. And if I did go out of the house, I'd be stared at because my appearance became different. And so, therefore, I didn't want to leave the house. I felt so ostracized when I was already going through so much in physical ways, and so many symptoms and problems. And so, yeah, it completely turned life as I knew it upside down. Everything I thought I could be, I then felt was not possible. Every dream I had felt like it was kind of ripped away from me. And it was incredibly difficult because, there was zero control. Everything that I knew, I now didn't know. And it wasn't just difficult for me as the one going through it. It was also, my parents now dealing with being told the thing you least want to hear as a parent, that your child is going to be unwell and there's nothing they can do. There was so much powerlessness around that. I also have 2 older siblings. Their lives changed. It was, my mum gave up working to look after me and essentially become my carer. And so it was, everything that we knew became different in an instant. And so I then had 9 surgeries at Great Ormond Street in the UK, and then got to a point where my condition was just getting worse. I was having life-threatening bleeding, and, we were calling the ambulance.
How quick, what age were you when this was happening?
It was so from 6 to 8 years old was when they were kind of doing operations every 6 months or so, or less than that, at Great Ormond Street. And I'd maybe have like a month of respite where maybe my bleeds were less severe, which is the worst part of my condition because it's basically a tangle of blood vessels. So in your body, you have arteries, capillaries, and veins. And when you have an AVM, your capillaries don't form where they should when you're being formed. And so it's basically a tangle between your arteries and veins. So they directly collide into each other and form a buildup of pressure. And it's basically like a pressure cooker. It kind of just goes off and it will recruit new blood cells to almost like a tumor, make it bigger and bigger. And it will just grow with you. So when you're in puberty, it's kind of ×2 speed of growth rate and things like that. And so it's kind of like being like a firefighter trying to fight a fire that's out of control with just water when there's, not much, or like a hose when there's not much you can do. And so there was such a kind of powerlessness and there was so little options. I remember that, we were at the best children's hospital in the UK and they said there's nothing more we can do. We don't know what else will help her. And I was just deteriorating more and more, which was obviously the worst thing we could hear. We felt so hopeless. Got another second opinion from another doctor. He was like, there's nothing we can do. And I remember that really vividly because the doctor asked me to sit outside the room when he was telling my parents this. So I was sat outside, like with the door shut, just on the floor while my parents were being told.
On your own?
On my own.
Oh.
When my parents were being told there's nothing more that he can do here, And so then we started going to America for medical treatment in 2013. My parents used all of their savings on my treatments. I had, I think, 25 surgeries in America. Every 6 to 8 weeks we'd go.
How did you manage to deal with that and at such a young age? Because it's not like you had the life experience and maturity to find resources for yourself. You've barely even formed into a little person at that stage.
I don't think I did cope. I think I was almost on autopilot. Like I was so aware that all of these things were happening to me, but it kind of just felt like, and another one, and another one. It was just like there was no choice. I never had a choice in the matter. Even if my parents tried to make me feel like I had a choice, or the doctors did. There was no choice. It was like, try this out. Try this drug out, try this surgery out, try this operation out and hope for the best or continue to let things get worse. It was like, there wasn't really a choice. It was like this or no other choice. And so I ended up always having to go for whatever that tiny option was and cling on to this tiny bit of hope that maybe it would help things. But I don't really think I did cope very well. I was really lucky to have a family and a mum and dad that was so supportive and just really wanted to do whatever they could, but ultimately they didn't have control either of the situation, but were there for me as much as they could. It was, my mum sleeping with me at my bedside when I was in a hospital, or it was, my dad traveling with us and trying to work while we were in Colorado for medical treatment. But we kind of became a unit. We'd call ourselves like the Three Musketeers because it was like wherever I was, they'd go. And I'm so grateful I had that, because I genuinely would not be here without my parents' support. And yeah, we became a unit. But I don't think I did cope. I think I kind of almost dissociated from myself. I think I was going through so much, and it was all so traumatic and so big.
As a means of survival.
Yeah, the only way that I don't think I did cope. I think I just survived through it. And I have people saying to me, like, I could never have, have done what you've done or go through what you've gone through. But I was like, you wouldn't have had a choice.
You didn't have a choice.
So you would have had to, by hell or by high water, you would have had to go through that. And so I think I also, I guess in a way, was so like removed from having a childhood. I wasn't really aware of what I was missing out on. So my life as I knew it did just become operation after operation. It was like literally operation, recover, operation, recover, operation, recover. From 2013 to 2017, we'd do that every 6 to 8 weeks. So I never knew any different. That quite literally became what I breathed. It was just hospital. And so I didn't cope very well. And I think actually, as I've got older, it's caught up with me. And it's like now I'm dealing with everything I went through as I've got older. Like I almost describe it as like a filing cabinet, right? With trauma or, these big things that happen to us, we start life off with like an empty filing cabinet. And with every traumatic event that happens to us, we kind of file it away. But then there's a certain point where too many things have happened and you can't file away anymore. It's full. And then the overflow is when things start to really trigger you and really affect you. And I feel like that's kind of where I've got to in life, where so much has happened. Now is where I'm really sad for my younger self. And now is when I'm dealing with the traumatic stuff, the PTSD, the memories, because it's kind of like I don't have the capacity anymore, Yeah.
Do you think that, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's remarkable to hear how you talk about it, and also to hear it from you right now, whilst you also have created this kind of magical world alongside all of it. And obviously, you talked about like suddenly just changing, having been this like really chatty, like happy little kid. Do you think that like your experience or your experiences that you went through inspired you to kind of be the person that you almost needed or would have benefited from like tuning into when you were little? Because obviously you started vlogging when you were 8 years old, which is
crazy.
Yeah, it's mental.
I know. I think if my child came to me now, 8 years old, and was like, I want to create a channel, I would be like, not right now, it's not happening. But I think because what I was going through was such an exception to the rule, with that I was so unwell, I wasn't interacting with the outside world at all. And my way of finding escapism was through watching videos on YouTube. For 20 minutes of my day, I could watch someone else's video, whether it's from my hospital bed or at home, and kind of forget about what I was going through or slightly detach from it for those 20 minutes and escape into someone else's life. It almost kind of felt like, in that parasocial way, these people I was watching were my friends, when I didn't have that connection to people my own age or the outside world or anything else as I knew it. And so for me, watching videos became kind of this safe haven. And even though I was in hospital, at least for like 20 minutes of my day, I felt a little bit less in it, And so I'd always had that part of me, like I said, growing up, that loved kind of pretending I was on camera and things like that. And I think when I started it, genuinely, I had no concept of like, this is going to be bigger than me. This is for other people. It was really just because I needed something.
An escape.
I needed an escape. I needed an outlet. I just needed something that felt like it was mine when my body didn't feel like mine. It was cut into. It was just kind of not mine from a very early age. It was like a dummy on a table. I didn't have any control over my life, nothing. And so I just needed one thing that felt like it was mine, my baby. And so one day, I would always film little videos on our iPad, our family iPad. And because I wasn't getting to school, when my brother and sister were at school, I was like, okay, I can go on the iPad now and I can film videos. And it was like my time. And so I just filmed these little videos. And one day I did ask my parents, would it be okay if I created a channel?
So it was literally your idea?
Yeah, it was my idea. And my dad was very for it. Like, he was like, I'll help you create it. Like, he was so for it. But my mum was like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know if this is a good idea. One, because obviously I was literally 8 years old. But two, because, you know, my appearance had really changed at that point, and she knew that the world could be unkind. And by putting yourself on a public platform, you are exposing yourself to people outside of your bubble. And I didn't understand that people could be so unkind. Of course, I'd had the whispers and the stares, but nothing quite so, like, you know, strangers commenting things, you know, and I was such in a bubble that I didn't understand the concept that not everyone in the world is nice and kind, and, you know.
Or like you.
Yeah, exactly. I was so kind of innocent to that. Yeah, so even though my mom was worried about, you know, the impact that external voices could hear, I think the way that we got to an agreement was that I'd have comments turned off initially. And that was fine, because I really was just doing it for myself, to have something that I could put my energy into. That was not hospital, that was not pain, that was not taking my tablets, please.
Also creating a new reality almost.
Completely. And it was a way for me to kind of put my newfound hobbies into something. So, like, I had always baked with my mum, but I got more into baking when I got my condition. And so it was baking, it was playing with makeup. I'd like steal my sister's makeup when she was at school and be like, this is my lip balm and this is my blusher. And my sister would be like, you've taken my makeup. She always knew. Even though I could literally put it back in the exact same place, she knew it was gone. It was makeup, it was like doing my nails, whatever it was. It was kind of just channeling a couple of things, giving me a little bit of escapism into this channel. And so I'd post every now and then, not that often, for a couple of years. And then finally I said to my parents around 10 years old, would you be okay if I turn my comments on? And so we turned them on, and, you know, it wasn't like I was getting loads of views or loads of subscribers or anything. I think I got like 13 in the first year, but I didn't even know subscribers were a thing. I had no concept of views or anything. I truly was just
Well,
doing
you were
it.
a kid. And also at that time, it wasn't the done thing to have a YouTube channel.
No, and it wasn't seen as a job. It wasn't seen as like a legitimate thing. And for me, it truly just was an outlet. That was all it was for me and my little world. And so we turned the comments on, and there was some really, really lovely, like, personal comments. And I think I was so surprised by the age groups. It was like people that were 10, but also people that were 65. It was such a range. And I think that was what I found so beautiful. And I was so kind of taken aback by how me just playing with makeup, or how me, you know, doing these things and going about my life, had connected so much with people. And I think
Did you feel that sense of connection? Like, when you read the comments, you would feel like you were connecting to them, and they were connecting to you.
Yeah, it kind of felt like these extended friends, you know, that I would have never known about, that could have been on the other side of the world. But there was this kind of connection to them. Like, there was a woman who, I told the story a lot because it was so poignant. There was a woman who had cancer, and she hadn't left the house for 2 years because she was so hopeless about life, so underconfident in herself, and was just kind of like, what is the point? Understandably. And she said after watching my video, she left the house for the first time after 2 years.
Isn't that remarkable?
It was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, but what have I done? Like, how has...
And you're 10.
Yeah. How has this impacted you like that? I couldn't believe it. And I was so...
That's such a big responsibility, actually, for a 10-year-old. I can't think of 10-year-olds who take on that kind of responsibility or have that impact.
Yeah, I think I was so taken aback by how deeply me, not even at that point talking about my condition, because it was almost like, it was the elephant in the room that, of course, you could see that I looked different, but I never actually addressed it, because it was almost like I wanted it to be a world in which my condition didn't exist, if that made sense. So I never really addressed it. So the fact that also me kind of going about my day and doing these things but completely unrelated to it had that impact was so insane to me. But it was also really beautiful. And I think it was, for a lot of people, they just connected with the fact that they didn't have to have had a chronic illness. They didn't have to have had, you know, the same life experiences that I'd had. But it was like, maybe you felt like an outsider and connected with me. Maybe you felt misunderstood and you connected with me. Or maybe you did have a chronic illness, or were often in hospital and you connected to me, or just loved makeup.
Yeah.
I think.
Or loved you.
Yeah. Or loved me, I guess, you know.
Because I was going to say, there is this real, without sounding weird, you're very, like, lovable and relatable irrespective of what it is that that one relates to about you, there is something so human and like deeply loving about the way that you are that does inspire that.
That is such a lovely
I really mean it though. I really
you.
do. And if it feels cringy, whatever.
No.
But I just like, I think a big part of that is how open and honest you are, because I think what's ironic is that in this world of kind of platforms and social media and everything, or just the world in general, there is this real kind of importance placed on like the way things seem. And there's something really undoing about the fact that you're just really real.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because I think part of why, I don't know, I personally struggle with that is, even though that this is all about is how exposing and vulnerable it feels, and it's scary to open yourself out to potentially be hurt or whatever it is.
Of course.
How did you come to that place of taking ownership and claiming your power and deciding like, okay, I'm just gonna be me?
I think that for me, I've always felt that no one shares enough, and that social media has kind of, from an early age, become this highlights reel. It is all about sharing the highs of your life, you know, whether that's in work, whether that's like you getting engaged, whether that's, you know, whatever it may be, your holiday. It kind of became this reel of highlights. And that's not always the case. You know, I think there's so many incredible people now like you, and, you know, people that do share as much as they feel able to about their journey, whether it's with pain or whether it's, you know, a hard mental health day. But ultimately, a lot of people have this kind of comfort and this ease in sharing the best bits. And that's understandable, because the best bits are the surface. It's skimming the surface of your life. And it's very easy to share because, like you said, you aren't kind of like opening yourself up to this kind of rejection, this vulnerability, and also this misunderstanding, I think. And a lot of my life, even with personal relationships with friends, I felt very misunderstood, where it's like, yeah, you just don't get it, you know? And though people can't get it, I think by opening yourself up, it allows people to have compassion, and it allows people to even just attempt to try and envisage themselves in your shoes. And I think
connect.
Connect. Yeah, exactly. And even though social media is about connection, I think there's been such a lack of connection over the past few years. And so I think for me, I truly just wanted to be the person as much as I could, even if it was just helping one person feel seen. I think the biggest thing you can give someone in life is seeing them, truly seeing them, and listening to them and making them feel human. And I think somewhere along the way, that's kind of become very disconnected. I feel like as a society, we just want to try and fix people and have the answers. And sometimes you don't have the answers to things. There's nothing that can change my circumstances, but at least if I can help someone else feel less alone in what I'm going through or seen, that is the biggest thing I could give someone. And so I think along the way, it felt very disingenuous for me to just be like, and I'm playing with makeup, and I'm doing this, when it was quite literally 0.1% of my life. 99.99% of my life was sat in bed unwell, or going to school for an hour if I ever got to school, and my mum getting a phone call saying, Nikki has had a bleed or has a really bad headache, please can you pick her up? That was my life. And so I think it kind of felt like a no-brainer, really, that it was, even though I didn't want it to be what defined me, it was the biggest part of my life. It shaped every single kind of facet of me, my personality, my appearance, my interests, everything. It felt very strange to not share that, you know? It just felt very strange when it was kind of like the tiniest part of my life was the rest. And so I think I don't think I ever made a concerted kind of decision to be like, and now I'm going to start sharing. I think I started getting comments, you know, asking me about my appearance, understandably, just people being curious. Obviously, not all of them were kind, but I felt at a place where I could kind of share my medical journey thus far. And so I remember being in Denver, which is where I'd go for treatment, in America. And we were sat in our motel room, and my mum was like in the bathroom having a shower. And I was kind of like, you know what, I'm going to hit record on my camera and just film my medical story. And it was everything that had happened to me from 6 to 10 years old. And I just spoke for 20 minutes about everything. And that was the first video that kind of took off for me. And that's when I realized, wow, so many people are connecting to this side of me. And I think that felt very special and it spurred me on to want to do more. It was very liberating. Too. And of course I was scared. I was like, oh, this is opening up, the most scary and vulnerable parts of my life and quite literally addressing it head on. But if I could even help one person feel less alone or more understood when I didn't have that, there was no one that looked like me in toys or TV shows or in YouTube and social media, that I just really wanted to try and be that for someone in whatever way they connected to that,
It's really humbling, actually, to hear you talk about it, and also to be 10 and thinking about helping one person.
I think
because with it starting originally as like almost like therapy for you, when did it kind of switch into being about like community and reaching other people? You mentioned when you turned on the comments. Was it then, or was it something that was you kind of almost seeking purpose, even though I don't think 10-year-olds usually have to think about seeking purpose?
I think it was when I turned the comments on initially, because that was what made me kind of like aware of like, oh wow, these are actually people that are watching my videos. It's very easy to kind of become a bit detached to like 10 views being 10 people or whatever it may be, those are actual humans behind the screen. And so when I turned the comments on, it felt like a real like, oh wow, this is someone that has actively watched this and typed this comment. And so I'd say that was kind of the beginning. But then when I would every now and then have people that would kind of see me and speak to me about their stories when I was out and about, at that point it was still very kind of few and far between. But when they did, I didn't really know how to react, because I was like, oh my gosh, my just kind of going about my life and my sharing my story has affected you so deeply. It was even, I think what I noticed is sometimes I'd be in a hospital and have a lot of children's parents coming up to me and my parents saying, thank you so much for posting your videos, because, my child watches them and feels so much less alone and feels seen. And that could be a child that has a completely different condition, but the kind of idea was still the same, that they've had a completely different childhood, completely different life trajectory, and are going through things that very few people can understand, especially at our age. And so I think it was just, I realized that even if it wasn't even me trying to preach anything, it wasn't me trying to be like, everything will be okay, you just have to keep going. It was never that. I think it was more just acknowledging like life is really hard and life is, really difficult and it's not fair. And me addressing that and me kind of taking people on my journey, I think it also came from because I felt so unseen and unheard by people in my intimate circle. A lot of people do have difficult lives, but a lot of people also have very easy lives. And I wanted people, whether it's people my age, like at school or whatever it was, to have a bit more of a concept of how difficult my life was. And sometimes I think that comes from, visualizing. And so I'd post videos like day in my life, having surgery. And it would be kind of for me filming the before of like getting my obs taken, like my blood pressure taken and being in hospital and all of these things, because it was like, I was desperate for people to just see how difficult things can be.
And you hadn't had anyone who you could see with that same experience.
No, and so I think a lot of it came from that. I feel like there was 2 prongs of how I kind of connected with people. It was either people with facial differences that had kind of been prejudiced against or received really uncomfortable comments or stares, in public, or I just felt like an outsider, or it was people with kind of chronic illnesses or chronic hardships they were going through that connected with me, or maybe a parent of someone who was going through that, who was just grateful that I was there living, or filming, pressing record on my camera. But I really don't feel like I still had a concept of like, this is helping a group of people. I just
or a community.
A community, yeah. But I definitely felt that sense of community. Even people that, my condition being so rare, my one in my face affecting 3 in a million, I didn't know anyone who had my condition. And so that was really difficult. It felt very isolating. And so the fact that I'd even get comments from people saying like, I'm in India and I've got an AVM. I'm in Mexico and I've got an AVM. Thank you so much for putting yourself out there, was really like enlightening and crazy and special that I'd been able to, just through filming my little videos, connect to people on the complete other side of the world that I would have never known existed that had my condition. And of course, everyone's journey is different. Everyone's experiences with my condition are different, like anything in life. But the fact that I was able to have this knowing that I'm not the only one, because I think in life, when you're going through something so niche as well, like a chronic illness that is so rare, it is so hard to feel understood, it's so hard to feel seen, that you kind of then just kind of burrow yourself into this hole because you feel like no one will ever understand, no one will ever see me, no one's going through this.
As well.
So hopeless. So what's the point of life? Why me? That I think filming my videos did give me a sense of purpose, and I think it's the same now. I feel that a lot of my
also
life,
probably a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
What was that like? It changing from almost, because it started out as like this therapy and then became this purpose, and then a sense of like being the person who's holding the torch.
It was difficult. It was. I think having that sense of responsibility was difficult. It was very kind of, I felt very proud of that and so much pride in that. And I wanted to do my community, whether it's people with AVMs or facial differences or whatever that may be, my larger community, I wanted to do them justice. But it was very difficult because I also didn't want to be the person that defined everyone's story. I didn't want to be the only one talking about, visible differences or disabilities or chronic illness, and people to feel like, but that's not my experience or that's not my story. And I didn't want to feel like I'm speaking for other people, because I can only speak on what I know. Same with you, same like with anyone. You can only speak about truly what you have lived. And so I never wanted it to feel like I was speaking for other people. Of course, if I could kind of uplift their stories and have a platform to channel them, then I would always do my best too. But ultimately, it's only what I know. Is what you know is what you know, right? And what you don't know is what you don't know. And so I think I found a bit of like a difficulty in, I want to use my voice
trying
for good,
to help everyone,
but also I can't speak for everyone. And also there are so many issues in the world that I think sometimes when you start speaking about one issue, you then kind of untether this kind of thread that it's like, and now I need to speak about this, and now I need to speak about this, and now I need to speak about this, because people see you as that kind of advocate and that voice for change, which of course I try my best to be that, but I can't speak about every issue in the world because then I'd be here forever. So it's kind of, I try to just talk about what I know and what what is second nature to me, which is having a chronic illness and, the lack of funding and research into that, and lack of support. I can talk about having a visible difference and how ostracized you feel and the lack of representation, what it's like to be a child growing up unwell. These are all things I know very well, but there's so many things outside of my remit that I don't know. And so I think I just tried my best to harness what I do know and use that as my power to speak for change. And I think what I learned is that those were the things that I kind of ran away from. I hated that my appearance changed. I hated that I looked different from everyone else. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated everything going on around me. But these little things became ways I tried to channel into something good to make it feel like there was any type of reason that this would happen. And I don't think I'll ever feel like what's happened is fair. I don't think I'll ever feel like there was a justification, because there isn't. I think also that can be very toxic when you try and turn it into like things happen for a reason, because they don't ultimately. Some things don't.
Also
happen.
telling someone that.
Where so they damaging.
Don't feel like that.
So damaging. And so I think for me it was like, if I can use any bit of what I've gone through to channel into something bigger than me, that is all I could hope for, really, and give me a little sense of purpose.
To hear the truth, because obviously your presence is so comforting and positive and uplifting, but obviously that's not how you always feel. And it's almost that thing of probably what you want to hear. But how has your relationship with your mental health and the way that your mental health has been affected, obviously you mentioned it earlier, how has your mental health kind of been throughout, and how do you take care of yourself primarily in order to do everything that you do?
Yeah, I have a lot of mental health issues, and I think something that's really not spoken about is how having a chronic illness can really affect your mental health. If anything, sometimes the mental's worse than the physical. I have chronic PTSD, but a lot of kind of PTSD around chronic illness is not spoken about. It's kind of a lot of other sort of types of experiences that are shaped into why you have PTSD. And I think the difficulty with my PTSD is that I've been in a lot of life or death situations where my life has quite literally been at risk, and I thought I was going to die over and over and over again. And so when you've been in so many life or death situations where you truly feel like you are at risk, it's incredibly traumatic, and that is stuff that obviously stays with you for the rest of your life. And I think the difficulty is with my trauma, it's past things that have happened to me, but it's present because my trigger is my condition, and my condition is a day-to-day 24/7 issue, right? And it's like at the drop of a hat, I can suddenly be unwell and suddenly have a bleed. Like, I always carry tissues with me. I never know when something's going to happen. Like, I could be fine 1 minute and in an ambulance the next, because that has been my life. And so as a result of that, I really struggle with not having consistency or control, because I've never had control. I think from a very early age, as we've spoken about, my body never felt like mine. It truly felt like a dummy on a table, in one of those like hospital shows. It felt like that. Yeah, it is my body, and yet it is mine that I deal with post surgery and things like that. And I feel like I've, at a lot of times in my life, felt subhuman, because it's like your doctor will do their job, but it's like they don't necessarily see you as a person. Understandably, because they have to disconnect themselves to do what they do. But it's like no one sees the aftermath of the recovery, the everything you're going through. And that's incredibly difficult. And so I think I've been in and out of hospital my whole life, and also in and out of therapy my whole life. A lot of that therapy has not been beneficial. I think because a lot of people don't really know how to deal with something when it's like your triggers as current, but also some of your trauma as past, because it's like you can't deal with the normal.
It's compounded on
top. Yeah, it's massively compounding, and you can't really necessarily deal with it in a way you would past trauma, because it's currently happening. And say a trigger for my traumatic events is going into hospital. Well, if I've got an appointment, I have to go into hospital. I can't not do that. Some of my triggers are like, I smell cleaning products and they smell like hand sanitizer in hospital. Or I hear a siren and I'm like, oh, that's an ambulance. Like, tiny little triggers. And I'm so aware of my body that I never feel very present. I'll be like physically present, but say, I don't know, I've watched a film in the cinema. If I'm kind of worried about having a bleed, I am looking for the nearest exit point, and I'm
taking you out of the present all the time.
I'm constantly in fight, flight, or freeze mode, where I'm like frozen and I can't kind of deal with anything going on around me. Or I'm like, I need to run away. I need to get somewhere safe, which is normally just trying to go home and brace for impact, which is like me having a big bleed. Or it's like fight, where I'm like, okay, I need to have tissues ready. I need to, my body goes into overdrive. And so I could watch a whole film, and if someone asks me after, like, oh, what was it about? I couldn't tell you, because I'm not present. And I think I've spent so much of my life not present, and I've struggled a lot with depression, severe depression at times, because when you have something that is quite literally cutting off your connection with the world, your ability to do anything as simple as even having a shower, you are confined to your hospital bed, confined to your bed, confined to your room. It doesn't just control a portion of your life. It controls everything. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I can never, ever, ever, ever escape my condition. And I think that is a really brutal, reality that I'm going through. It's like, even I went on holiday with my parents this year for a few days, and I was having bleeds while I was there. And a holiday should be about escaping from things for a few days. You can't escape yourself. Yeah, it's like being shackled to like something that you can never get away from, yet that's your body. So my body has never felt like my home. Which your body is there to protect you. It's there to look after you. That's what it should be, of course. But my body has always felt like my enemy. It's always felt like it is putting me in harm's way and putting me in threat and putting me in life or death situations. So from a very early age, I hated my body. And that's probably why when I had these surgeries where I've got an incision on my leg that's this big, and I've got a cut on my neck, and I've got cuts on my face, I've obviously been aware that it's happening to me, and it's been really difficult. But it's like, oh well, like, you know, I've already been scarred enough by everything else that's happened to me mentally. What is another scar, you know? And so it's almost felt like it's like, that's what you deserve, you know, because it's like, if you're always putting me in harm's way, I think I've always had a very negative relationship with my body, which is why, like what we were talking about, from a very early age, I developed an eating disorder, because it was control over my appearance, control over my life, control over something to do with my body. But I struggle most days with low mood, most days with feeling very hopeless, feeling very, I think, unfortunately in life, I have a very pessimistic outlook on everything, because I've always
Which is so hard to believe, like,
it's
seeing
all the things I do, right?
Yeah.
And it's, of course, those are things I do, and those are things that I practice what I preach, I do. But ultimately, a lot of my life is like constant struggle. And so I've been so let down by my body and my condition constantly, whether it's like I'm looking forward to seeing a friend or doing this, and then suddenly I have a bleed and I'm in hospital, then it's like I can never look forward to things, because I'm constantly worried that something's going to happen. So I never look forward to anything. So I'm only ever happy. Like, even the runway, I was like so anxious that it was not actually going to happen, that then I only really enjoyed it once it was done, if that made sense. Because in my head, it's like nothing's ever happening till it's happened. And then that makes it really difficult, because then I'm never looking forward to anything. I'm never like excited about anything. I always live in this mindset. It's self-preservation, it's survival. That's why I am like this. But it's like, I never believe something's going to happen, and I never am excited about anything till it's done, and then it's done, you know?
But then is the thing that you kind of connect to, is that kind of like the gratitude that you connect to? Is that the part that kind of almost gives you the hope? Because obviously when you are able to look at what you've done retrospectively, it is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it almost feels like these two people in this weird way. Like, obviously online I'm known as Nikki Lilly, and that is me, I am Nikki. But I feel like I almost hang her up when I come home. It feels like if I don't kind of turn her into this kind of other person, I don't think I would cope very well with the fact that they are both one person, because it's night and day. And often it's like I could be having a terrible headache, but I will still kind of go through the motions of doing this thing. So it's like I'm constantly reminded that through doing these things, whether it's like me on a red carpet or me getting my Emmy or whatever it may be, that I am still going through things. And although I am so aware of how incredible the things I've done are, sometimes it's difficult, because I feel like it's so overshadowed by my condition, and that is the bittersweetness of it.
Which is current.
Yeah, which is current. Even like when I got my Emmy, 2 days later I got sepsis. So it's like, and then it's overshadowed by that, you know? So it's like, of course I'm so aware of the incredible things I've done, and I'm so like, wow, this is amazing, and I'm so grateful. But everything is still defined by my condition. So even like when I travel to Paris for Fashion Week, or I go to New York for work, I'm always with my mum, and I'm always carrying a bowl and tissues wherever I go, because of if something happens, you know, she has to be there. And so there's a real lack of like independence and assurance in anything I do, that it is like, wow, I've done these things, and I am still like in shock I've done them. And I am like, wow, this is insane. And I am so grateful of the opportunities like the runway show, or, you know, documentaries that have been made about my life. But equally, it's very hard for me to absorb them when I'm so consumed by everything else going on with my condition, you know? So it does feel like they kind of sit beside me, if that makes sense. Like I look at them and I'm aware that they're mine and I've done them, but equally I find it very difficult to absorb them, because I'm so constantly, you know, at capacity dealing with just my condition, whether that's mentally or physically, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Are there things that you have adopted or used along the way that act in the way as almost like rituals that have helped you just in the present moment? Obviously, we're going to get onto your creativity and everything else, but
yeah, I think initially I tried to kind of like feed the whole toxic positivity idea of like things will be okay and like all of this, and at some point you're just like, this doesn't work, this isn't helping me at all. And if anything, it's actually quite toxic. And so for me, I've realized I just need time to myself. In amongst, so example, the things I do, I really need the days in between to, recoup, revitalize, have time to myself. I really value having time alone. Like, I love being in company, but I really recharge by being alone and having time to just be. And I've realized that some of my rituals are just as simple as letting myself lie there on my bed for 2 hours watching a series, because if that's what I need, that's what I need. Sometimes I don't think recharging or fulfillment comes from like actively doing things or actively, because sometimes you don't have the energy for that, and sometimes you do.
Especially with kind of, I mean, yes, the things that you said that you feel grateful to be doing, but at the same time, they are also things that you're showing up for that require energy and time.
A lot of energy. They are, like, for a normal person, they are probably 10 times more tiring for someone with a chronic illness. And so every little, thing takes out of me so much. Often after anything I do, like, for example, yesterday I was filming something for 2 hours. I had to come home and lie down for like 2 hours. And so everything is not simple. And so I think I used to be really hard on myself. That I was like, why can't you just do this simple task? Whether it was as simple as like tidying my room, having a shower, or even just going to see a friend for 2 hours, I would dread it because I was like, I just need to be alone. Otherwise I'm going to go crazy. And so I've realized that just if the voice you hear in your head is the one you hear 95% of your life, right? And in your day. And so if that voice is not one that's met with compassion, meeting you with compassion, then it's so detrimental. And so, of course, I'm hard on myself at times. We all are, but I try my best to meet myself with compassion when I need it. If I'm having a bad day, I'll say, I'm allowed to feel like this. If I'm tired, I'll say, I'm allowed to lie down for 2 hours. That is okay. I think it's so important to see yourself and meet yourself where you are and not try and be like, but this. Sometimes you do.
You don't need to feel grateful.
No, exactly. I don't need to feel grateful. I don't need to be worried about letting people down, and I feel like I spent a lot of my life doing that because I felt so guilty for the way I've impacted people and in like how I've changed other people's lives with my condition and things, when my parents and things like that. But sometimes all you can do is just be. And whether it's yourself or other people, they have to meet you where you are. You cannot, sometimes you are so, I've spent a lot of my life masking, seeming okay when I'm not, when I'm out and about, because it's easier than sometimes showing that you're not okay. It's kind of like survival mode, right? Being like, hi, I'm good. Like, because it's easier than being like, no, this, and this. Because also often people don't understand, and then you actually feel worse for opening that up. And so the biggest thing you can give someone and give yourself is meeting yourself where you are and not expecting anything from yourself except just being. Sometimes all we can do is just get through the day. And sometimes getting through the day is the biggest success you can have. And so I think I've learned true compassion for myself. Like my therapist often says, when there is no answer in life, the only answer is compassion. And that's something that I truly am learning, is that if I'm not kind to myself, then like what hope do I have, in like healing and recharging? So I'd say that's a big thing. And also just I think I'm learning to try and reconnect with my younger self a little bit. I feel like I mourn my childhood and I mourn the life I could have had or what could have been had I had a normal, happy, healthy life. Not saying that it could have been, especially better, but of course you mourn who you could have been, because till I was 6, I was a completely different child. And so I'm learning to kind of do things that I once enjoyed when I was a child, whether that's painting or baking or, I don't know, whatever that may be. I think we don't play enough as adults. And playing, I think, is so important. Doing things just because, not because we need external validation, not because we need to create a masterpiece out of it, just doing it because, not because you need to have a reason to, or because it's work, but just because. I think often things turn into work and then you're like, oh, now I have to do this, which, sometimes it does feel like that. And so I've started taking pottery classes recently. Why? I don't know, just because. And it's nice to do something that's new and different and is completely unrelated to like your condition or, your work, whatever it may be. And though you may not be good at it, that's part of the fun. And sometimes when things feel so out of control, it's so nice to actually have things that you like can get better at and can practice and can, because that's again yours, like when I first created my channel. So I think for me, it's just trying to meet myself where I am, be kind to myself, give myself time, and
Play dates.
Yeah, play dates, and also just surrounding myself with people that I feel like do get it. And I've realized that my time in life is so precious, right? And so if I don't want to surround myself with people that just don't get it and just like will never get it, then that's okay. There's quite a lot of friends in the last couple of years that I've just, we've not fallen out or anything, but I've realized like, right, you just don't get it, and like you will never get it. And of course people can't get it, but if they don't even try to get it and meet you where you are, that's not a very good friend. And so I think it's even just being very aware of if I've got time off of work, do I prioritize seeing certain people because I love them and I
knowing what you need as well.
Knowing what I need, yeah. It's like you can only fill up your cup first before you can fill up other people's. And I feel like I used to be the other way around a lot because I felt very guilty about just existing, I think, And so I'm really trying my best to turn that guilt into self-love as much as I can.
And obviously also like it's so empowering actually, literally for me right now, to hear you talking about like giving yourself the license to just go off and do something fun.
Yeah.
Because I feel it's something I feel sometimes like, oh, well, there's always going to be things to do, or there's always things that you could be doing to be a better person, or, call this person or that person. I love that reminder of just like, do it just cause.
And I don't know about you, but I feel like it's become a little bit toxic where it's all about self-optimization. Like you need to be the best version of yourself.
Like a human being, not a human doing.
No, so true. Like why do we constantly need to be optimizing ourselves 75 hard? Like why are we constantly trying? Of course, better yourself, there's always room to grow. There's always that. But if
you can also burn out.
You can so burn out. And if you're not appreciating the version of you now, you will spend your whole life just kind of like running on this treadmill like a duck, just trying to keep your head above water, trying to constantly find a better, a better thing to do. Whether it's the next thing in work, I feel like we never absorb what we've done. We're always like, okay, and now what? But also you don't actually appreciate, like, for example, I'm 21 right now. I'll never be 21 again. So I need to appreciate this version of me as 21 rather than trying to be like, I need to do all of these things. I need to be a better person. I need to wake up earlier. I need to, because then actually you will never be present in your current self. And I think that can be really detrimental. And so I try my best to also be very selective about what I consume on social media. So if that is muting a few people, then it's muting a few people, fine. But if it's feeding your brain with better stuff, then I think that's also so important, because all of this self-help stuff, self-optimization can be really damaging.
Well, you can't make it a shackle.
No.
Because you've got shackles already.
Yeah.
Obviously, creativity, finding your voice and your creative expression has been like a huge part of your journey. And you're so visual, actually, and creative in the way that you have approached makeup. And, you're obviously now the ambassador and face of lots of beauty brands. What was it like finding your creativity and, like you said, kind of like picking up the watercolors? Was makeup kind of like that for you originally, or was it something where you're like, I am going to be the face of?
Oh my God, not at all. Not at all. It was like, not at all. I think for me with makeup, it was, I'd say, my first newfound hobby after being diagnosed, like something that I really kind of like fell in love with. I think for me, I always watched makeup tutorials on YouTube. And again, it was like the American beauty gurus being like, foundation, blusher. It was, I always watched them and was like in awe of it. I think for me, growing up with my mum and my older sister, I'd watch them put on a bit of makeup and be like, wow, this is magic. It's magic how it transforms not your appearance, your confidence. It gives you kind of a boost. And I think for me, makeup from a very early age when I got diagnosed was kind of something that I was just enamored by, was how a bit of a red lipstick can boost someone's confidence, or like a bit of eyeliner or something. And I think it's transformation, truly. And of course, it's like it's limitless as well. And when a lot of my life, like I said, felt confined, it was like, wow, there's this limitless thing where you can just wear blue eyeshadow or literally green lipstick or like whatever it is. It was play, and it was an art form in its own way. It was quite literally like painting watercolors and things like that. And so I would steal my mum's eyeshadow, like purple eyeshadow, or like my sister's, and lip glosses. And I think for me what it was is that from when I got diagnosed, I really did not, and my appearance changed, I really did not accept myself. I think I was so, if anyone was rejecting myself, it was me. And, I couldn't process the fact my appearance was changing and there was nothing that I could do about it. And I had a lot of like self-loathing and felt like a monster. And so I feel like with makeup, obviously you have to look in the mirror to apply it. It was almost a way for me to actively confront my appearance and confront that it was changing, and almost have to like stare at myself in the mirror to put on the eyeshadow, to put on the blusher, whatever it was. And it was a way that I think allowed me to process my appearance changing in a way that I don't think I would have been able to otherwise. And it did give me a bit of confidence, whether it was literally putting on like a bright purple lipstick to go to the supermarket with my mum. It was doing that, and it made me feel like it was armor to kind of say, okay, I can leave the house now.
It's almost like your face becomes a canvas more than something that represents like all of your kind of insecurities.
Yeah. And it was an art form in itself. And and the fact that it was limitless when so much felt limited in my life was so special to me. And I think it's so beautiful. And I think sometimes makeup gets this rap of like, oh, people are just trying to cover their things, or like catfishing or whatever it is. But that is
you're allowed.
You're allowed. But it's also like the tiniest part of what makeup is. Makeup is so much about transformation internally in the most beautiful way. I think it's been incredibly healing for me. And again, it allowed me to connect with my younger self even now, because there's so much play in that. Like if I want to wear a green eyeshadow, I can. And so I feel like it was, I remember the first time we went to America for treatment, there was Sephora, and there wasn't Sephora in the UK.
Sephora is amazing.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with Sephora. And I'd watched so many beauty gurus from America doing their Sephora hauls or whatever. And that was like magic. It was like, if you could have like taken me to heaven, that's what heaven looked like. Yeah. It was like, I was just obsessed with makeup. I still am. And so I remember like, obviously I was going to America for treatment, and it was so daunting. I was so scared. There was not one good thing that was, happening out of that. But the one thing that I looked forward to was being able to go to the mall and go to Sephora for the first time. And I remember it was the day after we'd got to Denver for the first time, and we went to Sephora, and I was in there for 3 hours. And I had swatches all up my arm. I had my poor dad, I had no idea like how much everything costed. So I put in like $300 worth of makeup into my basket, and my dad was like, Nikki, we can't buy you all of this. And then I was like, okay. It was like choosing who was my favorite child and picking out like what makeup I was going to actually be allowed to buy. But it all started there. And I think for me, makeup is still so much of that, Of course, now it's my job, and it's, I work with some brands that I could have never believed. So even now, like I've worked with Sephora. I went to Italy with Sephora this year, which is like the most full circle thing ever. Like whenever I work with brands that I could never have even imagined, it is like, that's when I really pinch myself, because it's like my younger self I know would be dying about it. Like I used to collect MAC lipsticks, and like I'd save up for them. I remember the first thing I saved up for was a MAC lipstick, so quite pricey. And then I went to New York with MAC last year, and it's like so full circle. I still have all of my lipsticks that are like so old you can't wear them anymore. But it's like the whole point is how
your museum.
Yeah, it's literally my museum of makeup, my little makeup collection. And I think the whole point is how incredible that it is that I never envisaged that, one, I'd be doing this as a job, or two, I'd be working like face to face with these brands, or be, the face of some of these brands. But I think it's incredibly special because, again, like I said, there was no representation in beauty of people that look like me, whether it was people applying the makeup or people in campaigns or whatever else it was. That was never a thing. And so to be kind of really embraced by the beauty industry in a way that I kind of haven't yet in fashion or things like that felt so special. And to be able to work, I went to Cannes with L'Oreal and things like that. And it's like to have brands that truly, of course, it's a bit like late. And of course I can be like, this should have been happening 10 years ago. It is happening. And I think you have to be aware.
With you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be like, I'm the one that's.
No, but you are.
Running the.
What would you say to someone who feels othered by their uniqueness or differences?
I would say, because I still feel like that sometimes, I'm still aware of being ostracized in the industries that I love. you truly will learn that the things that make you feel other, your uniqueness things, whether it's your, condition or your disability, whatever it is, will be your superpower. They will be the things that make you stand out. That is the reason that I walked to the show, is because Hannah and Stephen from the brand was, enamored by me as a person and my condition and wanted different types of people. And so those things that you're trying to run away from, or that you don't like about yourself, or that you resent, understandably resent, but those things will become, like, mark my words, will become the things that make you stand out. You could easily try and, mimic or imitate the girl next door, but there already is one.
Yeah.
So it's about learning that there is only one of you.
And you're irreplaceable as well.
Yeah, every single person is irreplaceable, because every single person has different life experience, different quirks, different qualities, interests, yada, 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 than the next person. And so I think that's what I've learned, is I think I truly found, I hate the word like success, but success when I really held on to the things that made me who I was. So that was when I started talking about my condition, when I started talking about facial difference and all of these things. That was really when my trajectory of my work and my life really took off, because those were the things that people hung on to, because that was different to what anyone had ever heard before. If they want to see another makeup
also,
tutorial,
that's the thing that they loved or love.
Yeah. I think it was also showing that in fashion, right, and in beauty, if you don't see, say there's like a blusher you want to try on, if you don't see someone that looks like you wearing that blusher, whether it's, skin color, or whatever it may be, appearance, you don't know that that is for you, right? Because there's no one that's representing that. Same with, say you want to become a doctor and you don't see anyone who's got visible difference that can become a doctor. That's not to say that you can't, no one is saying that, but it's so nice to see that someone's done it, to make it feel like it's a possibility. And so I feel like that's my kind of biggest thing in the fashion and beauty industry, because those are the main ones I'm in, that I just want to be what I never had. Especially, I think that's quite healing for myself or for other people to see. Like, by me walking a runway show, that is showing that, okay, I'm not the stereotype, but it's possible. By me walking the carpet at Cannes and all of the insane coverage it got, it's showing that by me just being there, it's sending a message. And so I think in everything I do, though I dread it and though I have insane imposter syndrome, I don't go into anything like, I've got this. I really go into it all like, I'm going to mess up. I shouldn't be here. Like, I have such self-doubt. But I keep proving to myself that I can do it by doing the thing. So I think you never know unless you try. And on the other side of self-doubt is where you truly thrive, Yeah.
Wow, I'm like speechless, actually.
I
was like thinking,
I feel like I just rambled.
No, not at all. I'd love to hear a little bit about how your experience with AVM has shaped your view of beauty, both for yourself and others, and what you'd like to change about the beauty standards that we live with today.
I think my perception of beauty for myself and others has become the opposite of skin deep. I think, we live in an age where we like to say that, it's all about the inside that counts, but I think that is also not kind of true and represented. And I've really learned that there's no reason to judge a book by its cover. And it's truly when I've got to know people that I've realized how beautiful of a person or not beautiful of a person they are, And so for me, I truly prioritize people's hearts and people's souls. And I'm very drawn to people that, have similar qualities to me or interests, whether that's empathy, compassion, kindness. Those are the things that are beautiful to me. And
they'll be there irrespective of what you look like.
Yeah.
Or how old you are or whatever.
You'll be old and grey, and those will be the things that will stand the test of time. No one will care at the age of 90 of how they looked, They will care about what kind of person they were, how they treated others, and what kind of life they lived. And so for me, of course, there's a level where I'm 21. Of course, I care about my appearance because I grew up in an age where that matters, whether it comes to dating, whether it comes to even brands I work with. I very much feel othered still. I do. However, I've just realized that I don't want to then concern myself with people like that. I feel like because of what I've been through in my appearance, I cut through a lot of the BS of either people or situations or just fakery. Like I feel like because of all my life experience, I've almost got like a BS detector where I'm like, I just know you're not my kind of person. Or if it's a brand that only works with one type of looking person, they're not the brand for me then. I'm not going to beg to work with you. You work with me because you see me. And so then I prioritize those types of people and those types of brands. And so I've really realized that beauty lies within, and your heart and your soul is, and how you treat others is the most beautiful thing that you can give to yourself and give others. And of course, there's a level that appearance plays into it. For example, like I dye my hair, I dress the way I do, but that's in a way of self-control. And that's it. That's for me. I do it for me. And I think so long as you do things for you and for your own sense of self, that is okay. I think we get so wrapped up in being perceived appearance-wise that we don't actually take a minute to tell ourselves, I'm kind, I'm this, I'm that. And I think affirming yourself is so important, and affirming others.
Well, you're the only person who is with you.
Yeah.
24 hours.
And I feel like we don't actually, like, I would much rather hear the compliment of you're a kind person than like you're gorgeous. Like that means so much more to me, And so I feel like I've really, like, words of affirmation is my biggest like love language. So even I think affirming others is so important, And so I feel like that's how I perceive things in terms of like my world, in my social circle, or in myself. Of course, I care about appearance, but I want to appear put together. But ultimately, it's literally the least thing I care about. And I feel like you get to truly know a person by what their priorities are. And looks don't last, period. So that's that. But in terms of the industry, there's a long way to go for sure. And I feel like, especially in terms of like disability and facial difference, it really does feel like we're at the bottom of the barrel, even in terms of fashion weeks. Like, I'm so aware how low the percentage is of people that are different are in shows, especially major shows. There's not one. And that's really discouraging. And it's very, how can you know you're wanted in an environment unless you see others like you? And of course, sometimes, especially in fashion, I'm there. So it's like you are part of the change. But if there's only one of you there, it's hard to feel like it's a genuine want and a genuine kind of like interest in what you do and belief in what you do and you as a person. If there's only one of you there, it's very easy to feel like the odd one out. And so I feel like I, again, try my best to focus on the brands that do care and do strive for change. I'm the ambassador of Face Equality International. I'm the patron. So I spoke at the United Nations with them earlier in the year, which was crazy. But Sephora actively do partnerships with Face Equality and did a whole campaign this year around called My Face is a Masterpiece. And it was all people, visible differences. And I do, of course, it's like, say there's a brand I dream to work with and they're, working with like Kate, Emily and Sarah that all look the same. Like, you do you, but equally, like, that's then just not a brand I want to associate myself with. It's like, I've spent so much of my life feeling othered and feeling guilty and feeling less than. I don't want to also feel that in my work. So, though I have.
And you're also actually at the epicenter of your work. You've created like a universe and a world,
and if I advocate,
and a community.
And if I advocate for change and I advocate for difference in others, why do I want to work and associate with brands that don't also believe that? And so it's difficult, it's bittersweet, because there's so many brands that I love that just maybe are trying to strive for change but just aren't there yet. But there's so many other brands that practice what they preach. But if it's not a brand that I truly align myself with, it does not matter. And so for me, I really only want to work with people, aside from brands, just genuinely nice people. And I think that also kind of then trickles down to like who I work with brands wise and who I, choose to use my time for. And I feel like if a brand is kind of trying to, like, there's times where I've worked with brands and like, say it's like an ad and the brief they give you is like the same that they give every single other person. Well, then you're clearly not appreciating coming to me for the reasons of why I do what I do. So I feel like I'm very just kind of careful of who I work with now and seeing brands that truly practice what they preach. And if they don't, then I don't. Well,
yeah. I really want to talk about what you're doing tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
If you're happy to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. So
for your 11th year.
For our 11th year, which is probably like 15 now, it's just like 11th one. I have a charity called the Butterfly AVM Charity, and I set it up.
Which will be in the bio.
which will be in the bio again. Thanks, June. When I was 8 years old with my parents, because, like I said, there was no information out there on AVMs, and if there was, it was incredibly scary and fear-mongering. And there was no information. There was such a lack of research, resources, and support, most importantly, for people with AVMs and their families. It's kind of like any diagnosis, it's kind of dumped on you, and then you're left to kind of be like, okay, what now? There's no support at all, network. And with an AVM being so rare, I think it's so important to try and connect with people, whether, they are God knows where in the world, but just because of life experience, it's so important to surround yourself and connect with people that are like-minded. And so we created the Butterfly AVM Charity quite literally because of that, and to be a haven for people with AVMs to either come to if they've just been diagnosed or don't know where to go, or also families and friends and how to support someone with an AVM. And to date, we've raised nearly £1 million into research for AVMs, which is, amazing. And now through our research, we have found the genetic mutation that causes my condition, and we directly fund the research at 4 different institutes and hospitals. And 2 of them I go to myself. So it's really special, and it directly funds the research. And so we're currently kind of trialing lots of different drugs in on the mutation, and hopefully one will work. It's very slow, and unfortunately, because an AVM is rare, like all rare things, there's such a lack of funding, such a lack of interest from pharmaceutical companies to find cures or make a change because there's no money in it.
But it's remarkable that you've done that in your lifetime. You're only 21.
Yeah.
I mean, you've already found
the genetic mutation that causes my condition. We know so much more about it now, and it's a lot less fear-mongering. It wasn't even in the NHS directory when I was diagnosed, and then a pamphlet got created for the NHS with my face on, all about AVMs, and that would be given to any person that was diagnosed. So this year we have 2 tables worth of people with AVMs coming, of people who are family members of people who maybe have passed from AVMs, or have gone through dealing with people that have AVMs. And for me, obviously, we created the charity. A lot of it is about my journey, but I really want to platform other people's stories with AVMs, because no 2 is the same. You can get an AVM in a limb, you can get one in your brain, which is the most common. So every single person, like any illness, can have a different experience with it. So I really want it to not just be about my journey, but other people's as well. So we've got our ball this year, and our ball we didn't do one last year, we did one the year before. But it really is more than anything, more than fundraising, just a night to celebrate, people dealing with AVMs, but also just the cause and raise awareness about it, and just talk about the importance of it more than anything. It's a celebratory night more than anything. And I've got to do my speech, and I've been slowly losing my voice this week. So I'm drinking honey and lemon all the time this week to make sure that I'm okay to do it. The same thing happened when I did the United Nations. I completely lost my voice the week before. There's something to do with speeches that just, my body is like, no, we're losing your voice. You're going to lose your voice pre a speech. But no, it's going to be amazing. And I'm so excited for it. And it's one of the biggest pride things I do. And my dad is incredible. He's the director of our charity. So he's the one quite literally on the phone to family members of people with AVMs for hours about, certain doctors that he could connect them to around the world, or different treatment options, or things like that. We actually even have our researchers coming to the ball. So they're the people that literally are in the lab doing the research. So it really...
That's going to be amazing. I hope you have the most incredible night.
Thank you.
Raise loads of money.
I know.
And awareness, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
It's honestly just so incredible to get to do this together. And I can't tell you how grateful I am. You're just beyond inspiring. Obviously, we can't sit here all day. As you said, it's tiring doing this kind of thing.
But do you know what? This has been so lovely. This has felt like such a conversation. You've created such a safe space. And it's so funny though when I do a podcast, because I then want to ask you a question. It feels so rhetorical.
Well, I'll come on your show one day.
Yeah, you will, 100%. It'll be the other way around. No, thank you.
But I want to just ask you, if you had 30 seconds or a minute to just say something to the person who isn't feeling hope right now, or needs to hear something from you, what would that be?
Firstly, I'd say you're allowed to feel the way that you do. If you're going through something really difficult, then don't try and pick yourself up and dust yourself off and keep going. Of course, if that's what you want to do and that's the way you cope, do it. But it's so important to acknowledge how you feel and feel it. But I also think, know that even if, I'm not on the other side of my condition, I don't know if I ever will be. And it often feels like I am on a train and there's no destination point and there's no light to the end of it. But that doesn't mean that you can't keep living. Sometimes living will just look different. And that's what I've realized, is that I will never be the person I once was before I got diagnosed. And I have to kind of at some point make peace with that. But I'm here and life is so short. And so do the thing you want to do, whether it's, I don't know what it is. Maybe you want to be a singer. Maybe you want to cook, whatever it is, just try your best to live limitlessly as much as you can. And life is so short. So do it, while you're still here, try your best to do what you can. If you've got a dream, there's always a way.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
No, thank you. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. Please subscribe to I'm Fine and follow us on social media for more updates. I hope you enjoyed the episode.